Movie franchises have come a long way. Some take years to grow from just one popular movie that then spans into dozens of sequels and remakes to keep the legacy going. But what if that legacy already existed before even attempting to make a film series about it? That was pretty much the situation J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings was in when director Peter Jackson decided to make it in 1997. Adapting the 1,200-page series into film was tricky, to say the least. Originally, Jackson and writer Fran Walsh settled on making 2 films to save on budget, with the first one ending with Saruman dying, as well as combining several characters into one. Fortunately, it was decided to push the budget of the project to around $100 million, on 3 films that will be filmed back-to-back for over 5 years. Overall, this was a huge risk for both Peter Jackson and New Line Cinema. Not only did Jackson have the task of bringing in the imagination of a famous book series to life, he also had to show the potential profit a studio can make by sparing no expense in almost every aspect of the production.
Yes, it's really, a tribute to New Line Cinema, to Michael Lynn and Bob Shaye, because they've taken a gamble that I think will probably go down in history as one of the all-time Hollywood gambles, because nobody has ever said we'll pay for 3 films, 3 big budget, expensive, complicated films. We'll shoot them all together before we release the first one, because we don't even know if the first one's going to succeed or not at the box office. I mean, it's a hell of a risk.
So everyone crossed their fingers for this to work. But once Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring released in 2001, people loved it. The first movie received high praise for its adaptation of the first book story, the performances of the actors, and the revolutionary special effects that further cemented the role of CGI in cinema. Audiences and critics respected what Jackson and New Line was doing, so everyone in production knew this will work and that this will be big, financially, technically, and critically.
The films are what they are. The 3 of them were shot together at the same time. They're a continuation of the same story.
So if you like the first one, you should like the second one.
Yeah,
and even more so because you'll be more into the story.
We made it at the same time. Yeah, they were all filmed together. So we were just on a roll, going through this great sort of essentially 9-hour story.
Which brings us to our next film. Once Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers was released in 2002, people were excited about where this trilogy will go. The game changer was still among us, but one of the biggest progressions that came out of Lord of the Rings was the development of the character of Gollum, a completely CGI character that is still praised to this day of how realistic and three-dimensional the character seemed.
Where would you be without me? Ellen, Ellen, I saved us. It was me. We survived because of me.
This character really pushed the boundaries of what CGI could do at the time. Gollum was originally supposed to be a practical effect, a mix of makeup, costuming, and puppeteering. However, since they decided to use CGI to bring the character to life, instead of making him from scratch, they combined the active talent of Andy Serkis physically acting and voicing him, and some makeup effects designers who were taught how the software works. Since Jackson logically assumed that they would know how things such as skin texture, hair, lighting, and movement would look, and also pushing the limitations of what motion capture can bring us. Both the collaboration of Weta Digital and Andy Serkis were the foundation of these visual effects, and they both have gone on to do bigger and better projects. If that amount of effort was put into visual effects, imagine the limits everyone pushed on all the aspects of making this trilogy, such as hand-making every single chainmail all the knights wear, even though people don't even see him that much.
There's 13,000 rings in one of these suits when it's finished, and it takes approximately 3 days to make up one of these suits. And for me, it's been about 5 months of non-stop. Just the calluses on the ends of the fingers. However, we'll get there.
Roaming the landscapes of New Zealand just to get a few shots of them walking over Middle-earth.
Well, Sean absolutely did not want to fly and said, look, I'll take the ski lift up and then I'll walk the rest of the way.
We shot there for 2 or 3 days, and our day would begin with everybody flying in the helicopters. And as we flew over at 7:30 in the morning, we'd look down, and there'd be this tiny black speck climbing the cliff. It was almost like a cliff face, and it was Sean Bean dressed up as Boromir, like a human fly on the wall, clambering up this mountainside all by himself to sort of get to the location, because he didn't want to go there on a chopper. He had like 2 hours of climbing to do.
And even unique perspective shots to make Ian McKellen seem bigger than he is compared to the rest of the hobbits.
In order to get the camera alive, we started thinking about ways of using motion control in order to doing what we call moving force perspective shots, using slave motion control bases.
You do a motion control move where you have the one actor on a moving platform. So when the camera moves, so you're literally sliding the guy along on the floor as your motion control motion control camera is moving along.
You have the camera on a motion control dolly, making it move in and out or side to side. But you have another smaller dolly electronically hooked to it and does the exact same motion, but sort of in a counter movement. But every time you move one way on one dolly, the other one immediately responds.
Which brings us to our final film, Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. A film loved by so many people, it's hailed as the best film of the whole franchise, earning over $1 billion and winning 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Visual Effects, and Best Adapted Screenplay, ending a legacy that will forever be remembered as one of the greatest trilogies of all time. So, what happens now? What lessons did studios learn from a film franchise that earned over $3.3 billion? They learned that adaptive franchises on a big budget can work. You can start a franchise like Star Wars, but you can expand it like Lord of the Rings. The series has paved the way for franchises and multiple projects made either back-to-back or were already planned in advance for a wholesome series. Director Peter Jackson is known and respected for this series, so much so that he was even brought back for The Hobbit, and is hailed as one of the most revolutionary directors of all time.